tonight and do anytime while we play. This is very informal. You can see we did wear the band shirts so you'd know who we were, but we've worn from khaki to black to something very pretty Connie's got on to what everybody else wore. It gets hot in here sometimes for rehearsals, and so as I said, tonight we'll just be a little more casual, and I want you to feel casual because a lot of you are up close and personal tonight. We'll try not to play too loud. No. But welcome, and I want to thank the people of the church for letting us practice here. That's one of the biggest problems for community bands is to have a place to practice. And we really appreciate you allowing us to do that here and not charging us. We know it costs with electricity, air, or whatever, but we don't make money. You know, we play, occasionally we can get donations, and that will go to buy new music for us, but you know, that was an expense that we really don't make the money to do, so we really, really appreciate that. And so we'd like to give back to you by playing some concerts for you. And we'll be doing the Pumpkin Patch in October and a Christmas one, and you let us do the Memorial one in May, and we really appreciate all that because we enjoy music, but we also like to share it. And sometimes you want to have somebody to play with. So we really do appreciate it. All right, it's a big band night. I hope you recognize the names of the music that we're playing. We're going to open with Chattanooga Choo Choo. And yep, it first appeared in 1941 film Sun Valley Serenade. And right off the bat, it was an immediate hit in the film and on the radio and all. So we hope you enjoy it. We even have a train whistle for you. Always seeing it on the USO shows, or Bob Hope show. I was kind of young then, but you know, it always seemed like the little lady would come out and the troops would be behind her and she'd be asking them, you know, pardon me boys, is that the Chattanooga Choo Choo? And I'm like, oh, I like that song. You know, not knowing a thing about the history and stuff, but it was really cute. All right, our next one, this is something we picked up. We came up with the idea to do a big band concert for you. This is Glenn Miller in concert, a very big name in the big band era. Glenn Miller was an American big band conductor, arranger, composer, played the trombone, recording artist, and he was very popular before and during World War II. So in our songs collection tonight, you're going to hear In the Mood, Tuxedo Junction, A String of Pearls, Little Brown Jug, and Pennsylvania 65000. Now, I learned some stuff watching the movie that Jimmy Stewart played Glenn Miller in. Okay? And I thought it was so neat when I watched that, because you ever wonder how songs get their titles? You know, how they come up with that? Well, I don't know about In the Mood or Tuxedo Junction, but A String of Pearls, he had promised his wife a real string of pearls. And when he first gave her some, they were imitation. Because in the beginning, he used to have to take his trombone to the pawn shop to make money. Luckily, he had a great pawn shop guy who saved it for him, wouldn't let anybody get it. As soon as he, did gas at the gas station or odd jobs, and he'd get his money back, and he'd come back and get it back out of the pawn shop and try to make money with it again, Well, when he hit it big, they were at a gig one place, and he brought her a present, and it was a real string of pearls. And that was the song his band played, so he wrote it for her. And then A Little Brown Jug, of course, was a popular song. And she had repeatedly asked him, oh, that would make a good song for the big band. No, it's not right. It's not what I want to do. And it premiered after he went missing in the plane. But he had written it for that Christmas concert that was broadcast overseas, because he decided so many of his band members were drafted. And so he goes, well, I need to be with them. And we need to do this for the troops. And he was going from one site to the next to prepare for a concert ahead of time, and his plane never arrived. But that's where Little Brown Jug was. And Pennsylvania 65000, that was a telephone number back then. And he had told her to call him because he's going to ask her to marry him. And she had called Pennsylvania 65000. So here's Glenn Miller. lot in that piece, but you get a good chunk of each of those songs so you can recognize it. Okay, our next one, we're going to feature one of our own. This is Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. To me, can't do a big band without that one. This was written for the 1941 film Buck Privates. Do you remember who that starred? Comedy team. Abbott and Costello, yeah. And I haven't gone over this with them. They're learning. Yeah. And originally they had wanted them to sing it, but thank goodness they went with the Andrews Sisters, because this song has been ranked number 6 on the Songs of the Century. Now, that's a pretty high honor there. Okay, and we're going to feature our own David Blunt on trumpet back there, and the trumpet section as a whole. So here we go. Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. Another big name we had to do is George Gershwin. So our next piece is a tribute to Gershwin. Now he was an American composer, pianist, whose compositions spanned jazz, popular, and classical music. I read some stuff getting ready for this that he had gone to Paris to study with somebody. It wasn't a name I could ring a bell in music history I studied. And they were like, no, you've studied too much classical. We don't think you're going to do jazz well. And she wouldn't work with him, or he wouldn't work with him. And so then he also went to Ravel, and I remember that name in music history. And he had his doubts, and never said whether he ever did or didn't. But that's when he ended up writing An American in Paris and left and came back to America. So he went over there to study with folks for jazz stuff, and they were like, no, you're too classical. Little did they know, right? However, we lost George Gershwin at the age of 38 to a brain tumor, which back then they couldn't find it and do anything about it. So who knows what we would have had from him. So In this collection, you're going to hear some of his 11 hits, and I only listed a few of them here. I think the ones that come to mind more. I Got Rhythm, Lady Be Good, Someone to Watch Over Me, Swanee, and a little piece of the Rhapsody in Blue. So here's a tribute to Gershwin. learning the part. So, trombone. Yeah, great. Okay, our next one is just a single piece. I'm trying to give your ears a break from the long ones. And our lips are a little break from playing so much. Is Sing, Sing, Sing by Louis Prima. And it was performed by Benny Goodman and his orchestra. The famous tom-tom solo during that time period was played by Gene Krupa. And it was interesting when I read about this today. He was playing at Carnegie Hall, Benny Goodman and his orchestra. And Gene Krupa just wouldn't quit playing on the solo. So that's why the recording has like an 8 to 9 minute whole recording, which was unheard of at that time for it to go that long. But he just got into it, and if you've ever heard Gene Krupa on the drum set, it was good. And I just thought that was hilarious. But the idea of the song came from Prima spending a day at the races with Bing Crosby. Sing, sing, sing. That's going to feature our drummer, Andrew St. Clair. One of those fun ones for us to play too. Kind of short and sweet. Our next one is we also have to include this person in a big band thing, is Duke Ellington. Is an American jazz pianist, composer, and leader of his famous orchestra. And it was a jazz orchestra. And he conducted his jazz orchestra from 1924 to 1974. Okay? They went through a little period of, it wasn't real popular. And then, it came back up again at the Cotton Club. So you're going to hear Take the A Train, Don't Get Around Anymore, Mood Indigo, Caravan, and It Don't Mean a Thing. Here's some Duke Ellington. band stuff, but we want to close with something that's kind of our signature piece. I'm trying to talk a little bit to give him a lip break. Those are some tough pieces we just got through doing. We've had a good time bringing them. I hope you've enjoyed them. This is called George on My Mind. And I don't know, we've had a really nice arrangement of it, and everybody just kind of ooh and nod over it. We have our great David over there that plays a wonderful ad-lib solo with it, and so we like to close all our concerts with it because it just all makes us go out with a smile, so we're hoping it makes you go out with a smile. Not that you have to leave immediately. Come mingle with us, enjoy some more cookies and drinks, and we really appreciate you coming out to hear us tonight. So, maybe. Awesome. Any of you play, we're here, and on Monday nights from 7 to 8:30. And our next step will be learning stuff for the pumpkin patch, so we'll have some Halloween music and some pop music that's kind of out there to have a good time with. And then we're going to play in Statham November 8th for their Veterans Day program around 10 a.m., I think. So look for that in the stadium, and we'll have some patriotic Memorial Day sort of pieces to play. So thank you, and please go have some sweets.